All right, so welcome once again to Ask an Otaku, the show where we talk about various anime and manga stuff. It's a chance for you to call in and let your voice be heard about various anime and manga stuff. We have a rip-roaring chat room going like crazy here about various topics. And as usual, I have with me Miniman on Skype. Hello, hello.
Lesson of the day. Breathing is good now?
Yeah, oh, wow. Anyway, so we're here to talk with folks about the following question, and obviously you folks can ask and talk about other stuff, but what we thought we'd focus on today is the question of what would be an anime that you'd recommend to an otaku, specifically, as was pointed out in the chat room, someone who's watched a lot of anime is kind of, maybe not tired of it, but is kind of a little bit jaded maybe, and just is ready to try something that really appeals to the otaku fan base, someone who really understands anime or manga. What would you show them? And it's an interesting, good question. So, I don't know, Miniman, have you thought about this? What do you think?
Well, the problem is, it's so easy to go and say Lucky Star, but they will have seen that.
Right.
Because if you're an otaku, you will have already seen Lucky Star.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like to dabble with the obscure. So
Yeah.
Because the problem is that every time I watch an anime, I see its alternative influences. So I find it hard to find an anime that is very sort of otaku-y based, as it were.
Mm.
But I mean, like, I always say, if you're an otaku, dabble with, like, if you haven't watched enough dark animes, dabble with something like Elfen Lied and see what you can do. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, honestly, it's a hard choice of what to sort of say.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually get very far in it, but I may actually agree with Sora Chan just reminds me of Back Game on the Gatori. I watched like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
As an otaku, while it wasn't very referencey, there was something so uniquely awesome about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I stopped it, but I'd say that perhaps Mitsudomai, it's got some otaku jokes there, but it's more Japanese culture in general, but it's a lot of fun.
That's actually one of the problems with Lucky Star is that, you know, a lot of the jokes are kind of more about Japanese otakudom. You know, there's all the jokes about like the anime store and anime tencho and all that stuff, and it's just, you know, that will make you laugh more if you're a Japanese fan than an American one. And that's the thing.
I'd say. Yeah, I'd say that it sounds like a bit of a weird suggestion, simply because it's almost very American in its ways of doing things. But I would say Panty Soccer with Garter Belt. Like, I think it just works with that sort of idea that it's both unique. It has a lot of sort of otaku jokes. You know, there's a lot of stuff about Gundam and Transformers. The whole freaking episode of it. So. Yeah, I'd say like, now that I think about it, probably Panty Soccer and Garter Belt just because it's unique and you really will find out whether you like it or hate it. So.
Yeah. Although, again, one of the problems with that is it's kind of like, okay, you've watched this, there's nothing else like this ever anywhere. So it's kind of like, but that is going to be the thing.
It's probably just the fun of it, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, about a lot of these shows is, you know, you're going to find stuff that's just weird and one-off. You know, that's kind of the point of going to an otaku with something like that. So, so does someone on the chat room want to call in and get their view on that? It's a very interesting question. Some folks have suggested things like Lane, which is a good example. Furikuri, although Furikuri I think is something that you can show kind of anyone. It's definitely weird. But I don't know. Gunbuster, I can see that. I can see Gunbuster.
The problem is, all the suggestions I have are ones that you would have seen. Haruhi. I mean, if you haven't seen Haruhi and you're an otaku, then that is the suggestion right there, because you need to see it. It's... Yeah, undescribable.
Yeah. Same thing like with Gunbuster, things like that. You know, they kind of are classics. So yeah, it's an interesting issue. And so now a question on the chat room about, well, what do girls like? It's actually an interesting thing because there have been a lot of there's been a big influx in female gamers over the past female otaku in the past 10 or 20 years. Female gamers too, I'm sure. But that's been a huge thing. I mean, the Gundam folks talked about how Gundam Seed had a 50-50 female-male fan ratio, roughly. And that was kind of surprising. I mean, they were trying to make it appeal to girls, but it's just really big. So the question now is, how do you make anime appeal to girls? What are the shows that you would show to a girl to sort of appeal to her? It's an interesting question. I mean, when I think of shows that appeal to girls, I think of Fruits Basket.
Damn it! You took my suggestion.
And that seems to be the big. Isn't it strange? That is like the one.
It's because it's got a unique premise, but it's so I think it's so well directed for.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's direction, and B, I mean it's a reverse harem, but it's not going too far ever.
Yeah.
And also it's really sweet. Like anyone can watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone keeps like. I was going to make fun of saying how that's oriented towards girls, so I made the guy watch it, and he loved it, and he hated me for it.
And Oran High School Host Club, another good example where it's sort of a reverse harem, but sweet. It isn't going too far. Escaflowne is a really interesting choice because Escaflowne is very relational focused. It's very much the question of his romance and who's going to end up with whom, and I can certainly see girls getting into it, as long as they can, if you will. There's also a lot of manly shonen stuff in there too, so it'd be interesting to see if they can handle that as well.
Kashiwa Maid Summer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I very much enjoyed Kashiwa Maid Summer, and I can imagine that girls enjoy that too. It does. I mean, it's sort of it's not as weird as Fruits Basket, but it's definitely as fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Kage After Sakura is a classic example. Certainly there, I mean, to appeal to girls pretty directly, although there are some shonen elements to it. The World God Only Knows, which I haven't seen any of, so...
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
no.
Fair enough. But I've heard excellent things about. Let's see here.
Show them Fountain. Open lightning.
Actually, Lola brings up an excellent point. Girls watch Naruto and Bleach.
Yeah, it's incredibly popular.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I can understand Naruto, Naruhina. That's a huge thing there. But I mean, I don't know, because when we never really think about girls' animes, we always think about they like more romantic plotlines and stuff. Ironically, that's me. I always, as in literally, I stopped watching Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece, not because they were bad, even though some of them did become bad at some points. It's literally because I knew that they were never going to get the bloody romantic plotline done with.
Yeah.
I was just like, do a romantic plotline, please. Don't just suggest one in every single one and not go anywhere with it.
It's actually funny about Naruto. I mean, I get the feeling that Naruto was originally aimed pretty much directly at 13-year-old boys, and it's still aimed at 13-year-old boys. Like, it's never quite grown up, even though its fandom has kind of grown. It's kind of like, it still has that girls are icky feel to it, which is kind of strange to me. You think eventually it would say, okay, maybe all the fans actually want to talk about that. So
it is odd. I mean, the only time they ever sort of mention that girls are powerful is when, ironically, one of them just gets stabbed.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see if we can get Brad in here. I'm actually going to see if I can just have him join the call, if I can get that working here. There we are. Excellent. 1 second.
Wow.
And in he comes. Let's see if we can get that working. Yeah, and it is funny how that's sort of crossed over. Hey, Brad.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hey.
So what do you want to contribute here?
Well, for the girls anime, I was going to say Kimi no Toroke.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I consider myself a very girly man.
Good man. I'm with you. Woo!
and I love that show. I haven't really caught up on the second season, but it's got a good romantic plot line. It holds up the tension well. Everything works for me.
Yeah.
And for the everyone part, I was going to say Durarara.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I admittedly stopped watching Durarara after its first episode. I couldn't handle that much info because I had no idea what was going on.
I got about 4 episodes in, to be fair.
But for me, it was just like, okay, wait, when's this MSN chat done? Wait, what's he saying? Why is he saying that? Oh, wait, where are in a city now? Wait, wasn't this before? What?
Yeah, there's a lot to keep up with.
It doesn't help when you're watching stuff at 4 in the morning after your brain's already frazzled from editing.
That is an issue, definitely.
Yeah, big issue.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff. Now, that raises an interesting question. I mean, most of the fans I know of Kimi ni Todoke are male. You know,
Really?
I don't hear a lot of girls going on about Kimi ni Todoke. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. But that seems to be really popular. No, not really popular, but popular more along you know, the male view, which is kind of curious because that is certainly a story more about, you know, the girl than the guy.
That truly surprises me.
Yeah. And again, that could just be, you know, be my view. I'd be very curious to see how girls take something like Bigata HK, or even, you know, Chubra. You know, how would they take that kind of a series where, you know, it is kind of trying to address a girl issue, but doing it in a way that is definitely made to appeal more to guys.
Yeah. I do have a feeling that Bigata HK would be taken rather well.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and to be fair, I mean, Bigata HK is, you know, the sex is, well, there's a saying that girls will use sex to get love, and guys will use love to get sex. And there's definitely that feel that the sex is more of a, it's a plot device more than anything else. And so the story is more about this relationship. So, you know, I agree. I think that would definitely work for girls very well.
It's quite interesting that you said earlier that sort of the whole female otaku base is risen.
Yeah.
Because what's quite odd is that every time I'm with a bunch of editors on Skype, and we decide to look for other editors and get more editors in, I was originally completely shocked that about 90% of these AMV editors are actually women.
Wow.
So many of them. I mean, seriously, like, I know on my Skype, I'm just looking now, and, like, sort of we hold massive video conferences with loads of editors and stuff like that. And let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4 male editors here.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Wow.
And, I mean, and seriously, it's probably because they're good at the slow AMVs. If there's ever a slow moment at any of my AMVs, because all my stuff got deleted, you won't see them anymore. But I have like one, which is my first ever one there, which is slow. But all my slow AMVs are so awkward. and it's really annoying because they were trying to teach me how to do slow AMVs, and they are so good at it.
That is amazing, because I mean, I know I was into the AMV scene in America back about from years ago. No, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I would go to the conventions, and I'd specifically go to the AMV panels, and it was all guys, no women whatsoever. Heck, even in the audience, there were almost no women. So that's really interesting.
When I started watching AMVs, I used to think that pretty much all of the editors were women.
Really?
That's just that's just what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, maybe it's the joke that they have more patience than us.
Yeah.
But, I mean, really, it's often quite amazing because what is interesting, though, is that a lot of people say there are more action AMVs. Now, I pump out AMVs very rarely because I even though I edit very fast, I spend so much meticulous time correcting everything. But I have this sort of theory, which I've sort of seen as well from all the editors that I know, which is that the guys will find like a fight scene they like, and then we'll edit that for like 5-7 hours, and then put that up. Whilst the girl will find a series they like and edit the slower moments for about 40 hours. And I mean, for me, I'm a bit weird in which I find anime like look for all of the actiony cool bits, and then we'll edit that for about 60 hours. Hence my AMVs never come out. But I mean, so I'm just an anomaly. But it is quite interesting because it's very funny on the video ones, especially when we're all editing. Sometimes once we did it for about 10 hours, we're all editing at the same time. And all of the men, it was so great. Like nearly all of us at some point just went either just like annoyed, or we're just going, yes, now I can put this on YouTube. Or all the women were just like, well, okay, that's that bit done. And okay, so I have done 10 seconds. I was just like, oh my god. Well, it was funny when they asked me how long I'd done, and I was just like, I have done 3. My edits are so ridiculous sometimes. But there we go.
Cool. So anything else, Brad?
Nope, that's it.
All right, cool. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Adios.
Amigos.
Yes. Interesting. Yeah. So, so what does the chat room think now that they're all talking about school uniforms? I am really surprised though at that whole idea. I'm still sort of staggered at the idea that that AMV creators have moved over to women. I mean, it doesn't really, shock me in the sense that girls can't do that. It's just that to see that complete. I kind of wonder where all the guys went more. You'd expect a lot more of them to stick around and do things. Actually, another thing about AMV folks is I see a lot of AMV folks will come in, make anime for a few years, and then kind of drop off. I don't know.
Yeah. I dropped off by just doing AMVs more slowly. My way of dropping off was just to occasionally do it, but I've suddenly got back into it again, so there we go.
And to be fair, I think that is common, that you'll see folks who will, they'll make, AMVs every month or two, and then they'll drop down to doing one every 6 months, maybe. And it changes a lot over the course of time, but they still do release things now and then. It's just very rare. I think there's a lot of my favorite AMV creators were making anime a long time ago. So they're probably all gone by now. They probably all moved on to having real jobs or something. I don't know. It's interesting. It's actually a really interesting question. For another episode is have you made AMVs and what was your experience with it? I mean that seems a lot of folks have been into AMVs and made them, and it's fun watching somebody who's never made an AMV, then they make it, and all of a sudden, their opinions about the qualities of AMV change drastically. Before you're really critical about AMVs, and then once you've made one, you're like, wow, this is tough.
Yeah. It's true. I got into AMVs pretty weirdly. It was the Always Review Center, and we had an editor in it. No, not Always Review, the anime executive. And we had an editor to begin with. And he did all of our edit. And as a joke, he once challenged us to do an AMV contest to see who would win. And I beat him, which is odd. And he was using like Vegas and Adobe After Effects. I was just using Movie Maker. but I was like so good at just timing everything and knowing when this should be there that they were like, do more. And I gradually sort of built up my skills, and weirdly enough, all my AMV skills came from not actually doing anime, but from doing, well, you've seen it, synesthesia, which is a Call of Duty montage, with anime effects.
Yes.
I mean, literally, it was just a case of, I want to do this. I have 40 to 80 hours of editing I might as well do, and the longest I've ever spent editing is 4 hours. So let's see what I can do. And I edited, and I wouldn't stop until I'd learned every possible effect. And it's quite fun that I'm not even an effect AMV editor, but I try and put stuff in it, which is always quite funny. But
well, that's a whole other thing about AMVs too, is the whole, are effects worth it thing.
No. I personally believe that. Well, no. I even though I now hate the George Lucas for doing the prequels, I will say, I quote him: "A special effect without a story isn't a special effect; it's just boring." I mean, like for me, I always say that if you're gonna do, I don't like AMVs where it affects everywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't like AMVs where it's a glorified clip show either. I mean, because the problem is that my current Phantom AMV I'm trying to balance out is it's trying to balance out that thing of effects. So what I always do is actually always make a normal AMV without any effects first. And I do that, and I always upload that first, so people can go, here's a cool AMV.
Yeah.
And then I'll go over it. So, for example, Synesthesia, I only have the second version at the moment, because my computer dying, and I'm losing about 4 AMVs that I was working on, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
But that's so frustrating. But if you ever look at the title, it's called Synesthesia 2.0 for a reason. There was 1.0, which was just Call of Duty, nothing else. There was 1.5, which was me adding the K-On person in.
Okay.
And then there was 2.0, which is me adding K-On, Haruhi, more music, more everything. And I think that often I've seen this on like only a couple of people do it, but the best AMV makers are the ones who will go over it afterwards. I mean, it's cool if you incorporate your special effects into it, but I've always said that a special effects AMV is boring because I want to see an anime. I'm not here to see effects.
Yeah. And to answer Tim's question in the chat room, yes, that is exactly why Avatar was boring. For those of you who are familiar with that movie. Oh gosh, I have. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it's an interesting point. And it's also interesting. I mean, a lot of folks have gotten into AMVs in many different ways. It's certainly not always just I like anime, so I'm going to make an AMV. It also has the advantage that there's a lot of stuff. It's so easy to make AMVs these days. It helps. If anyone in the chat room wants to join us, let me know. Say so in the chat room. Dark, you want to call? Let's see here. See if we can get Dark.
W actually has a very interesting question for us. He talked to me a bit earlier. So.
Dark does? Okay.
Yeah, it's a question I quite like the idea of.
Okay. Dark, what is your Skype name? Because I don't see it on here. See if we can get that added here. That would certainly help. Dark view. All right. I will just try adding you in. You have not added me to your contact, so I cannot call you there. Or, well, let's see here. Yeah, there you are. All right, 1 second. We'll see if we can get Dark into the conversation. Starting to see if we can connect that up. There we go. Hello there.
Hello. So, should I ask my question or
sure.
yours?
Go for it.
Well, I'll answer your first question first.
Okay. Okay.
The otaku thing. Well, hardcore otaku is someone who watched all the animes, the popular ones. Like Lucky Star, for example.
Right.
All the otakus watched that and enjoyed it and stuff. But so I would recommend an anime which is not popular but good.
Okay.
So I would recommend an anime which Miniman recommended me, which is Phantom.
Yeah!
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, at first, Miniman was just spamming Phantom time on OND Live.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't care much until we actually watched it together.
Mm.
I mean, when we watched it together, I was like, wow, why didn't this get popular?
Mm.
And now I completely love it.
Okay.
Such good, like, dark and just awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, recommending a unpopular good anime.
Fair enough.
It's a good question. It's a good thing to do.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So what's your question?
My question is, wait, let me just start.
Shall I say your question for you because you've obviously forgotten it?
Yeah.
Does including fan service / like boobs etc. in an anime degrade it?
Oh, interesting.
We discussed this after watching Freezing.
I'm sure you did.
Trust me.
No, Freezing has become really serious.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, if you consider the first 8 episodes of the world's most glorified prologue, they are in the war now, and it changed.
Okay.
Brilliantly.
Okay. That's a very good question. I would tend to answer that the question in general with a no. It doesn't degrade it necessarily. It depends on how it's used. A good example for that would be the anime that turned me into an otaku, Tenchi Muyo, where there is fan service, but there's fan service that's always there to make a point or to embarrass a character or to otherwise be there for fun. It's very lighthearted, I would say. A good example actually is the famous bath scene, which if you've ever seen a bathhouse episode in an anime, you can trace it back to Tenchi Muyo. They thought it up. And so there's a there's a scene where the characters are all going to a hot bath. There of the girls, one is very prissy and very uptight, and the other is completely uncaring. And so the second one, Ryoko, walks in. She doesn't have a towel on or anything, and then she starts teasing the first girl about how she won't, she's got her towel almost up to her neck, and she's very concerned. Like, what are you concerned about? And so, and then of course at that point, the main boy, falls over the wall into their side of things. So at that point, Ryoko slyly, takes the towel off of the first girl. And so, it's all used for jokes and for character stuff. They're revealing character through it. To me, that works. That said, the vast majority of the time, in the vast majority of anime, the fan service is there just to be fan service. It is kind of pandering.
How about just adding boobs to an anime?
Like in what sense?
What would you say about that?
Like, give me an example.
Freezing. Wait.
Yeah.
Freezing. I mean, in the very first in the very first first episodes, everyone prejudiced against it. The very first episode we thought Queensblade straight away.
Yeah.
Just because it had boobs in the very first episode, we just instantly said it was a bad anime. Not a bad anime, but it had the same effect of Queensblade.
Yeah.
But after watching 8 episodes in, I completely disregard the boobs. I don't even notice it now.
Well, and that opens the interesting question. I mean, is that a good or a bad thing? I mean, one of the interesting things to me is that fan service is supposed to be there to get a reaction. If the fan service has gotten to the point where it's just something you ignore, what's it there for in the first place?
No, well, after watching Freezing, I think I wouldn't call it fan service, but what Miniman said to me, it would add a dark feel to, Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
Okay.
It had boob scenes, but
well, yeah, but that
erotic, but it had a dark feeling to it.
Well,
it made the anime really dark.
And the thing is, I would say that's not fan service. You know, in the same way that, for example, there's a Chinese movie that I haven't watched yet, which I need to, called Lust Caution, and it's about a girl who basically gets involved with a rebel leader, and he has some very unpleasant proclivities, shall we say. And she kind of does this so that she can get close to him, so she can learn about what's going on and so forth, sort of a spy story. And so the sexual elements are very integral to the plot of the movie and understanding what these characters are and where they're coming from. You know, I think the nudity in Ghost in the Shell is actually quite important to the story. You know, when Makoto is naked are the times when she is most vulnerable. You know, I think
that's what happens in Freezing, exactly.
Interesting.
So it's a case of
happens for a reason.
I think sometimes it's a case of also misinterpretation. Like, you know, you can see a moment. I mean, like we said, as soon as we saw the first episode of Freezing, we decided to watch it because we thought it'd be the worst thing ever. We thought it would just be Queen's Blade season 3, and that's funny. And the thing is that, I mean, you ignore these facts sometimes because, because I mean, I admit one of the problems with Freezing is that actually it's pretty much one of the first scenes.
Yeah.
And that, you know, Ghost in the Shell, there's an hour in that. But like, but I mean, I do think that there is some point here. Like for example, I'm going to point out only the first episode of High School of the Dead. Because the first episode was good, very good, and it had fan service, and you know, and the thing is that, you know, as soon as it was the second episode, they did take it way too far.
Right.
But the fact is, when you look at it, you know, that first episode almost sort of it used it in the way that it was trying to be edgy and trying to show you that this was something different and that this is sort of, we are here to be as adult as possible. And yes, they took that too far, but you sort of get the point with that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting actually that that I found this quite funny because I made a friend who hadn't seen like any trailers of them watch the two trailers of one of Freezing, one of High School of the Dead. And I made them watch sort of the latest trailers, so they're both very dark trailers.
Okay. Yep.
And immediately it was quite interesting that despite that, because High School of the Dead had because Freezing had actual nudity, he pointed that out constantly. But yet, because High School of the Dead had the world's most jiggly boobs in history, he didn't point that out. And it's because he thought that Freezing was such a disgrace in that sense, that, you know, it would put bad thing anime. Yet, ironically, if you watch the two, you'll find that Freezing technically uses this sort of stuff a bit less than...
Okay.
After, like, 4 episodes, it definitely goes down. Like, like episode 3... No.
Okay.
But I mean, it does go down, and I think it's quite interesting that you perceive the anime to be bad, and I think actually Queen's Blade is possibly the reason for it.
That's what I was about to say, but you stole my word.
Damn it. Wait. I'll pretend I didn't say it. And perhaps I don't know what to say about this moment. Dark View, could you give me the words?
Well, since Queen's Blade used the nudity in a erotic way, and then they used it way too far, and then we use Queen's Blade as we replace fan service with Queen's Blade.
It's kind of a reference point at this point, isn't it?
Yeah. And then since everyone knows about Queen's Blade, if there's just an anime which shows nudity, you would immediately reference it to Queen's Blade just because of the boobs. And since everyone well, think of Queen's Blade as just an anime with fan service. They will prejudice that anime just because it has boobs.
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, it does make it a little bit harder to get someone in the West audience to watch it, because obviously there is still that. Like, if you don't get someone who's new to being otakus and to watch something like Phrasing simply because some people do get turned off.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Very much so. Try showing that to a girl.
Yeah. I mean, it always annoys me also that, you know, like, for example, beautiful pieces of art, I'll call them, like Elfin Lied. You know, even that gets slugged off for this. And yet, you know, the opening scene, it's violent and it's nudity, but yet people mistake that for being something stupid and something. It's one of the most powerful scenes, I think, possibly ever made. Like, it is total... This is the weakest, strongest person ever. You know, this person is physically strong, emotionally weak. And it's rather interesting in that sort of people don't reference Elfin Lied ever. Yet, and that almost interests me, that people often dive towards the negative rather than...
Yeah, that's true. It's a very good point. Cool. All right. Well, actually, we're about out of time here. So, thank you. So, thank you very much, Dark, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. And thank you as well, Miniman. I think that'll about wrap it up.
Hooray!
Cool. All right. So.
I like rapping.
Yeah, me too. Rap. Sometimes I have to tell the really awesome rap joke that my dad tells. Anyway, so thank you all for joining us for Ask an Otaku. Hopefully next time we'll have more discussion. We'll get some more folks online, and we'll have some more fun. And we won't have quite